Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're stepping into a really pivotal and, profoundly moving chapter of early Islamic history. We're not just looking at the Battle of Karbala itself, that single devastating event. We're actually focusing on its harrowing aftermath. Our mission today, to uncover the incredible courage, the sheer perseverance, and ultimately the enduring legacy of those who survived this catastrophe. We'll be focusing particularly on two central figures, Lady Zainab, the Prophet's granddaughter, a real tower of resilience, and her nephew, Imam Sajjad, the sole surviving male heir of the Prophet's household. Now, we've pulled insights from quite a stack of diverse sources, historical accounts, biographical info, all aimed at helping us understand what this period truly meant for Islamic history and why its echoes, why they continue to resonate so powerfully today.
And that's exactly it. You've hit the nail on the head. This isn't just about, listing facts. It's really about delving into the core values that emerged from, frankly, immense suffering. We're looking at a lens, really, through which we can view truth, justice, and resilience, even when the odds seem impossible. We'll try to connect these historical events to those broader, timeless questions of courageous leadership and, crucially, standing firm against oppression, whatever the cost. It's a story of how principles can triumph, even in what looks like utter defeat.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the immediate horror, right after Imam Hussein was killed at Karbala. The accounts describe Yazid's army descending on the tents of the Prophet's family, like the sources say wild animals, attacking, burning, just a brutal display. What was the immediate impact of that initial merciless assault on the surviving women and children?
Well, you've painted a stark picture, and that utter ruthlessness you mentioned, especially in that first act of violence, it instantly set this horrific tone for everything that followed. We learn about the brutal looting, possessions just stolen mercilessly. And there's one particularly agonizing detail that comes through. Sakina's earrings reportedly being ripped from her ears. Yeah. It just highlights the extreme vulnerability, doesn't it? The women, the children caught in this chaos, running between tents, just trying to find any protection at all.
Amidst all that fire and fury, Lady Zainab emerges right from the start. Despite the chaos, she's credited with rescuing her nephew, Imam Sajjad, who was gravely ill, couldn't even stand, apparently. Rescuing him from those burning tents. I mean, what incredible bravery in that moment of absolute terror.
Absolutely. Her quick thinking, her courage, right then, it was remarkable. And the suffering didn't stop there. That very first night after the battle, the entire family, these are direct descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. They found themselves with no shelter at all, forced to sleep outside in the biting cold. It underscores the complete lack of humanity shown to them, a deliberate cruelty.
So the next day, the forced journey begins. Under orders from Ibn Ziyad, Yazid's governor in Kufa, the very city whose people had initially invited Imam Hussein. The captives were taken there, but the people of Kufa tragically had been, gravely misled. They thought these captives were rebels. Historical accounts tell us they even threw stones at them. How do you even begin to combat that kind of falsehood, especially when you're a captive?
That's such a crucial question, and it really speaks to Lady Zainab's incredible intellect and courage. She delivered this powerful, profoundly eloquent speech right there in Kufa. Her strategy wasn't just shouting louder, it was about strategically dismantling Yazid's propaganda machine. She tapped into the Kufans' deep reverence for the Prophet's family, reminding them who these captives really were. Not rebels, she said, but the direct descendants of the messenger of God, their prophet. It was a direct challenge, appealing to their conscience, their religious loyalty. That was the key. Really insightful.
And the impact. Immediate. Undeniable. The records say people started crying, protesting against Ibn Ziyad. He got scared, apparently, by this public outcry, the truth coming out. So he ordered the captives sent on to Yazid in Damascus. Just imagine that journey. An agonizing, grueling 750-mile trek across the hot desert sun. They were given little food or water. It sounds like just an extension of their torment.
It absolutely was. And, if we consider the psychological aspect, Imam Sajjad's experience is particularly chilling. He was chained, neck and legs, forced to walk behind the severed heads of his own father, Imam Hussein, his uncle, his brothers, his nephews, all impaled on spears. This wasn't random cruelty. It was a deliberate act of public humiliation, designed to break their spirit, send a terrifying message.
Their arrival at Yazid's palace in Damascus, it was no relief. Accounts vividly describe Yazid disrespecting Imam Hussein's head while openly drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, a truly shocking scene of mockery in what should have been a court.
It was just blatant arrogance, wasn't it? A display of power. But what's truly remarkable, incredibly so, is that despite their captivity, their exhaustion, the profound disrespect, both Lady Zainab and Imam Sajjad bravely delivered these powerful speeches right there in Yazid's own court. They didn't stop. They kept exposing the truth of Karbala, directly challenging Yazid's authority, his legitimacy, right to his face.
After these sort of public trials, the family was imprisoned in Damascus.
Yeah.
And it was during this brutal captivity that Imam Hussein's young daughter, Bibi Sakina, tragically passed away. Just heartbreaking, a testament to the conditions. With such immense loss, how did the family, and particularly Lady Zainab, find the strength to keep going? To emerge as this enduring symbol of courage and eloquence? Let's maybe delve a bit deeper into her incredible story. Okay, so Lady Zainab, daughter of Imam Ali, central figure in early Islam, and Lady Fatima, Prophet Muhammad's beloved daughter. Her birth itself, it said, was foretold with prophecies of immense suffering she would endure.
Right, and what's really striking is the bond, the unbreakable bond between her and Imam Hussein. Our sources recount how, even as a baby, she'd only quieten in his arms, and later she would always apparently glance at his face before her prayers. It was that deep connection. The Prophet himself is said to have foretold she'd face 1,001 calamities in Karbala, specifically because of this deep love for her brother. That love, in a way, it seems it was the source of her incredible strength, her fortitude.
Her character, then, must have been truly profound. You read that she embodied the virtues of her extraordinary family, the serenity of her grandmother Khadija, modesty of her mother Fatma, the eloquence of her father Ali, forbearance of Imam Hassan, bravery of Imam Hussein. But how did these virtues actually manifest, particularly her intellectual prowess?
Yeah, it's fascinating how these qualities all came together in her. She earned titles like Fasiha, skillfully fluent, Baliga, intensely eloquent, and, perhaps most impressively, Alima Khair Mu'allama.
Right. What does that mean exactly? Knowledge without being taught.
Precisely. It signifies this innate, almost divinely inspired wisdom, something beyond just formal education. There's this anecdote, that she could recount Lady Fatima's entire Fadak sermon, a really profound, intricate address on rights and justice. And Abdullah ibn Abbas, a famous scholar of the time, reportedly called her Akulatuna, our learned lady. It was a recognition of this unparalleled wisdom. She was genuinely a scholar.
And her personal sacrifice during Karbala was just immense, offering her 2 young sons, On and Muhammad, to fight alongside Imam Hussein. And even when they were killed, she bore their deaths with such incredible fortitude. Famously refused to lament loudly, right? Because she didn't want to cause her brother any more grief or shame.
That decision, it just speaks volumes about her selflessness, her strength. It's extraordinary. And her defiance in Yazid's court, another powerful example. Despite being unveiled, a captive, she challenged his legitimacy head-on, quoted the Quran, condemned his actions. She even reminded him, quite pointedly, that his own ancestors were essentially freed slaves of the Prophet, a powerful rebuke. And that moment when Yazid ordered Imam Sajjad killed, she immediately intervened, shielding him, offering her own life instead.
Yeah.
That protective act was absolutely pivotal.
Yeah, and it's important to grasp that her stepping into the public eye like this, despite her inherent modesty, it wasn't a choice made lightly. The historical accounts frame it as a compelled act. The situation was chaotic and imbalanced, they say. It seems no one else had the courage or perhaps the insight to speak the truth so clearly in that dire moment. She really did become the voice of Karbala. Okay, now let's shift our focus a bit to Imam Sajjad, the survivor, the one who'd become this architect of legacy. We touched on his severe illness during Karbala, which, almost providentially it seems, kept him from fighting. And that ensured his survival, the continuation of the imamat, the spiritual leadership line.
Indeed. And his suffering just continued relentlessly during captivity, those terrible journeys to Kufa and Damascus. Chained neck and legs, forced to endure that awful public humiliation, walking behind the severed heads of his own family. It was an unspeakable ordeal, truly designed to break him.
Yet, despite everything he endured, he had this crucial role after his release. He established this really significant Islamic institute back in Medina, and over 27 years, it graduated, over 160 scholars? That's impressive. How did he manage that, and what was the real purpose behind it?
That's a key point, and it really shows his strategic thinking, his genius almost. Imam Sajjad's mission was, it was far-reaching. That institute wasn't just a school. It was a carefully constructed counter-narrative to the Umayyads' distorted religious claims, a form of resistance. He wanted to spread the true Islamic teaching, systematically expose the wrongdoings, the corruption of the Umayyad dynasty, and constantly emphasize the importance of the imama, ensuring Karbala's memory stayed alive and, crucially, understood. By training scholars who grasped both spiritual principles and the ethical framework for social justice, he subtly but powerfully pushed back against the regime's corruption. His notable works, like the Epistle of Rights and Obligations, they laid down this timeless framework for ethical conduct, for social justice, that's still relevant today.
And his story concludes with his death at age 57, reportedly poisoned by the Umayyad Caliph Hisham, who was jealous or threatened by his influence. It seems clear he remained this persistent challenge to the oppressive regime right until the very end. So the speeches of Lady Zainab and Imam Sarjad, combined with the family's continued captivity, this really stirred up public opinion, eventually leading to Yazid fearing a revolt, right? And their eventual release, what happened right after they were freed.
Yes, and this is where Lady Zainab's genius for preserving the legacy really shines again. Upon being released, she immediately did something quite foundational. She institutionalized the commemoration of Ashura. She held the first formal mourning gathering of Majizi Aza right there in Damascus itself. This pivotal act ensured the sacrifices of Karbala wouldn't just fade away. It embedded the memory right into the community's consciousness. A tradition began.
And their return journey itself, that became another crucial chapter. They made a significant stop back at Karbala, where, according to some accounts, Imam Sajjad reportedly rejoined Imam Hussein's severed head with his body, a sacred act. And this was followed by another great mourning gathering right there at the site of the tragedy, further solidifying the remembrance.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the core message of Karbala, which was preserved and propagated by Lady Zainab and Imam Sajjad, it remains this crucial lesson, doesn't it? About standing for truth and justice against overwhelming oppression. It's really a testament to the victory of truth over falsehood, even when the immediate outcome looks like devastating loss. Their actions showed that the narrative, telling the story, matters just as much as the battle itself.
When Lady Zainab finally returned to Medina, her appearance was reportedly altered dramatically, her hair white, her back bent, a visual testament to the immense suffering she'd endured. Yet despite all that, she continued tirelessly recounting the events of Karbala, making sure the truth was known. Her suffering itself became a living testament.
It truly was. And this really brings us to the question, what does all this mean for us today? The sources often highlight how Imam Hussein and Lady Zainab's unwavering stand inspired later leaders, social justice movements, figures like Mahatma Gandhi in his fight against British rule, or Nelson Mandela struggling against apartheid. They drew inspiration from this stand. Even today, Lady Zainab's birth anniversary, for instance, is celebrated as a nurse day in Islamic Iran. It recognizes her profound role in, as they say, nursing Islam and humanitarian values back to life through her steadfastness, her truth-telling. Their legacy isn't just history locked away, it's a living inspiration for anyone facing injustice.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's worth taking a moment just reflecting on the immense courage, the steadfastness of Lady Zainab and Imam Sajjad, their ability to persevere, to speak truth to power, and to safeguard a legacy against truly unimaginable adversity. It's profoundly inspiring.
And perhaps a final thought for you, the listener. In a world still grappling with injustice, dealing with information overload, narratives constantly being distorted, how can these lessons of perseverance, of truth-telling, of unwavering moral stand drawn from Karbala, how can they continue to guide your actions? How can they help you distinguish between what is enduring, what holds true value, and what is merely fleeting?